Well, it's the second week of November, getting close to the end of the year. Thanksgiving is just around the corner. Could you believe that? Could you really believe that? That Thanksgiving is just around the corner on there. Hope you guys are getting ready for some really good family time. And we hope that you enjoy yourselves. You got to take and treasure these moments. As much as we treasure these films, family is always very important. But you may ask yourself, what is on the schedule, the agenda for this evening? Well, we're about to delve in the mind's eye, or into the mind, or as it said was in Yellowstone, it's all in the mind. We will be looking at a 1983 film, really well done, starring some great cast members. Due to the tragic death of one cast member, this movie almost did not make the theater screens, and we'll discuss that on this edition as well. Also, on my video shelf, we'll be dealing with another in the same genre, but from a year later, 1984, dark science fiction adventure. Also with a great cast as well. And we will be checking in with your comments, what is on your mind, and we'll be showing you a special SVENGOOLIE edition preview this week, where we're not going to be showing you one, not two, but three of the films that are coming up this month on SVENGOOLIE on METV. So, have your boarding pass ready. Get ready to get on the flight back to the classics here once again on another edition of Saturday Pre-Flight, and it's just starting on right now. Well, welcome to another edition of Saturday Pre-Flight. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, and you'll receive all of our notifications here on Saturday Pre-Flight on Q2Cast TV. Thank you once again for tuning in. I tell you, it is a good month. The weather is nice. The clocks are about to change over. If it hasn't in your area, it's going to be. Finally back to regular Eastern savings time. And the thing about it is daylight, we need to get rid of daylight. I mean, daylight, either stay on daylight savings time or on Eastern savings time. This clock change drives us everybody crazy on there. But we got Thanksgiving around the corner, the parade, some great stuff. Other things this month, we had Godzilla's birthday just recently passed. In fact, METV's about to show one of the classic films from it coming up on, and we'll talk about that on the SVENGOOLIE segment on there. We got one of his great Godzilla classics coming to METV very, very soon on there, this month to be exact. But tonight we got two great films, main segment, and also off my video shelf, some really good ones that basically that need some love. Even though they've gotten Blu-ray releases, but they need some love because people don't really talk about it, and that's what part of this show is, discussing classic movies to a point where people don't discuss great films in a time when we need great films. That's why people here on YouTube discuss all these great classics, that they have all these watch parties showing some really, really good stuff. I mean, some of it may be some crazy stuff that you've never seen before. And I know I have some young viewers out there that they're seeing things for the first time. I mean, there are some people out there, some YouTubers that have some great YouTube channels where they're sitting and watching movies, and these are movies they've never seen before, and they're being introduced to for the first time. And I do watch them, and the reason I watch them, I like to see how they feel about these movies, and what retrospective from people that are growing up now, how do they feel about these same films, which when I was growing up and I saw for the first time, I had a spark in me and enjoyment that, you know, I wanted to get into this industry because of the artistic expression that these films bring out. But before we get into anything, let's see what's going on into the news. So let's check in with the Fast Five.
人は皆誰にも見せぬ自分を持っている。友人にも恋人にも。
The world's distracted. This window of opportunity isn't just our only chance, it's yours.
My only chance.
Love is just around the corner. When I'm around you, I'm a sentimental moaner.
You haven't quite seen it all.
You have a prepaid call from Jill Exotic. There's an innocent man in prison.
There is opportunity, a chance to shine, to show what you're really made of.
The 1980s in science fiction. Oh, what a great era to be in. I mean, even though the VHS tapes were just growing, the video store era was in its early start, and we hadn't even gotten into the internet yet. And meanwhile, we had some great films, some great anime, some great TV shows. Science fiction dominated everything we saw as far as on our screens, on our theaters, with many things. I mean, the rebirth of Star Trek. We were looking back at old TV series from the 70s like UFO, Space 1999, and then you had newer TV series that spanned primetime television to Saturday morning live action cartoons, which, you know, you had some great stuff for the kids out there, you know, that was very enjoyable. And then, of course, you had the sequel, which I tout as one of the best movies of all time in the Star Wars universe, The Empire Strikes Back. You also had science fiction noir movies like Blade Runner. And then you had the low budget stuff, Battle Beyond the Stars. You know, you had stuff, you know, from Roger Corman that was fantastic, you know, even though it was very low budget, you know, some of it was a little crappy, but you did enjoy it. And there were many of these type of films, from high blockbusters to average great science fiction movies to low budget. Why did we make this movie? But still, it is enjoyable all the way around film. And then we can't forget the anime. The anime genre was growing at this time as well. And people do not tout that they had their science fiction. You had your giant robots, to space wars, to sci-fi horrors. I mean, anime gave us some great stuff in the 1980s on there, and still to this day, a lot of it is finally getting its due as far as being remastered or getting an English dub finally, like the series Dirty Pair, which is really good if you haven't seen that as of yet. But all in all, the 80s when it came to science fiction was very, you know, was over the top fun to watch all of this. And a lot, I mean, there is a documentary out there, In Search of Tomorrow, by the guys who did In Search of Darkness, that discuss this. And I think to this day, science fiction 80s, 90s was phenomenal enjoyment, because we had every type of a scale that it is unheard of today. We don't have this type of filmmaking, because a lot of these directors, they're afraid to put it out. And I keep telling people, if you're going to make a science fiction movie or any type of movie, do it yourself. Don't rely on Hollywood, because there are some gems out there that, far superior than anything that we're able to put out today. And tonight we're going to be taking into one great one movie that had a tragic event that it didn't end up on the screens, and without its hard work from the people on there to get past the tragedy, we finally had gotten this film. And like I say, it's a great cast, great premise, and should never be copied, even though there are films out there that tried to copy it or get close to what this particular movie is. So we look at 1983 itself, science fiction film that was ahead of its time. I mean, a while back we looked at the movie Michael Crichton's Looker, which was a fantastic film, a movie that was ahead of its time when it came to technology. This film, in a way, also was ahead of its time. This was done over at MGM. It was directed by Douglas Turnbull, screenplay by Philip Frank Messina and Robert Stitzel. The main story was done by Bruce Joel Rubin, who was an Oscar-winning screenwriter itself. The movie stars Christopher Walken, Natalie Wood, Louise Fletcher, Cliff Robinson, and it's called Brainstorm. And this is, if I tell you, when I say that this movie is ahead of its time, it was ahead of its time. Because if you look into the perspective that we're just delving into virtual reality itself, will we get to the level like this movie portrays? By using sensory experiences that you're able to tap into the mind itself and record things from someone's mind and project it into someone else's mind, like recording something on a VHS tape and handing it to someone else, and then that person's able to see what you were thinking of, what every experience you have. And this film, it showed that what are the possibilities? How far can man go? Whereas you can enable yourself to learn about somebody's life, learn how they're feeling, what they're doing, feel the experiences. Say, for example, if you're handicapped, if you cannot leave your bed or your chair, a device of this nature to be able to let you soar upon the skies, swim in the waters, run on a track, drive vehicles, ride roller coasters. I mean, it's endless what you can do with this. And the thing about it is, when you look to the perspective that we're getting to that level of technology, VR is just the first step. Can we get to that next level where this kind of technology can be done? But you have to be scared of it as well, because like every other science, it can be corrupted and used as a weapon, as it is in this movie. Now, the main premise of this, it's that this is following a scientific team who has done the breakthrough, played by Christopher Walken and Louise Fletcher and Cliff Robertson. And the thing is that these technology, it seems at first to be fantastic. But after one little situation, and we're going to give you a little spoiler out there, a researcher records her own death. She's having a heart attack. And the recording is used later on by someone that this could have military applications for. Think to the perspectives. You could torture someone in the mind without even harming them by just plugging them into someone that they've tortured before, or someone's heart attack, because not only that you can feel everything on here, it's like almost touching everything. I mean, there's a scene where someone has sex and it's recorded, and someone else looks at it through this device, and it just basically, it's like if they're having intercourse, if they're having it. But one of the parameters in this movie, Christopher Walken, he plays back the heart attack, and as the researcher dies, he starts to see thought bubbles, memory bubbles, moments in that person's life. And that goes into sort of a perspective of, the old saying is like, you see your life flash before your eyes. With this kind of a machine, can you record that? Can you record the human mind, the vast knowledge and experiences of a person, and record it on there and look at it? Like I said, there are dangers, there are accidents that happen with this technology, because it can cause psychotic experiences, especially if you record someone's death or torture or something to that nature, or person falls off. I mean, you could tout this. There is a movie further along bit which is similar, which is also good, and we're going to talk about that movie down the line a little bit in another edition, which is also really, really good movie and a good concept, similar to this nature, taking it to the next level. But one character in this movie, who plays the wife of Christopher Walken in the movie, plays Karen Bass, is played by the fantastic, the beautiful Natalie Wood. If you've never experienced a Natalie Wood movie like Splendor in the Grass, West Side Story, and many other films, take a moment and watch some of these films. She's a fantastic actress. Now, at the time, during the production of this film, at the age of 43, Natalie had gone on a weekend boating trip in Santa Catalina Island, and basically she had perished. She had drowned, to the perspective on there, and that kind of shocked the world at the time period, because basically this woman was a fantastic actress, had a fantastic life. She was married to Robert Wagner, another famous actor on there. But I mean, she had a great life, and to be tragically taken away at age 43. We'll get back to the film in a moment, but the part of this, her death and stuff like that, has been still, believe it or not, here we are in 2021. And just only back in 2018, her husband was named a person of interest, because the investigation is not over. It hasn't finished, because basically her death, there were a lot of questions on her death. What caused it? Did she fall over? Was she pushed? It happened to be that the case has been reopened several times. 2012, the Los Angeles County coroner had amended the death certificate and changed it from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors, which basically put this back into the spotlight. And it's a shame that this happened. I mean, the reason why this was reopened again, looking at the autopsy photos, They saw an unexplained fresh bruising on her right forearm, left wrist, and right knee, and a scratch on the back of her neck, on a superficial scrape on her forehead. And that, from the officials, convinced them that she might have been assaulted. She might have been assaulted. There have been many documentaries. 2004, there was The Mystery of Natalie Wood and a couple of others that were put out there. I mean, to this day, no one has been really arrested or basically closure to this case. It'll probably still end up as one of those Hollywood mysteries that we probably will never get to know the truth behind it. But getting back to Brainstorm, the scenes that Natalie Wood had filmed were already complete. Like, her major scenes were already completed. The project itself was mounting major financial problems. And what happened was MGM at that time period took the opportunity to shut down the production itself, because it was already a troubled production. So they said they locked everything down, froze all additional filming, and they locked down the sets. No one could go in and out of the sets over at MGM. But this was the thing about it is that MGM at this time period in the 1983, they were cash strapped. And you see today, MGM is trying to be sold right now. And you can imagine, going back all the way back then, they were already cash strapped back in the 80s. At a time period that basically filmmaking was, at one of its heights. But, companies like MGM, old school, basically, they just couldn't adapt to the situation. They couldn't adapt to the new VHS era, the films being released, pressuring moments where basically a lot of their films didn't do well at the box office. And finally, they were afraid to put the rest of the money for Brainstorm. And the insurance company, the insurance institute, Lloyd's of London, were asking a lot of questions to the situations. Can this film be finished? Can it? It took depositions from many people in there, including Trumbull, and realized that the film could be finished. Because basically what it is, MGM was throwing the hat in, and they were throwing an insurance claim toward the film. And Lloyd's of London realized, he says, why should we pay out when the film wasn't even damaged goods? The film wasn't even completed. But one thing that played in the favor of Trumbull is Lloyd's of London provided about almost $3 million to finish the photography, and additional $3.5 million toward post-production. And then the studio started coming. And then suddenly, every studio was coming out of the woodwork, wanting to put money into this project, to put it out in the theaters. It's a great concept. And MGM figured out at the end, was like, man, we look like real schmucks just if we let this movie go to anybody else. So they decided to put the rest of the money into this, and finally releasing it. But what they did was, there's a couple of extra scenes that were filmed, and they used Natalie Wood's sister Lana for the remaining scenes that they needed Natalie for. And the film has a dedication credit to Natalie Wood on there. Now, as far as the effects wise, it was introduced as what they call show scan. If you're not familiar with show scan, it's a film development that used 70 millimeter film, and it's projected at 60 frames per second, 2.5 times the standard speed of regular motion picture film. The reason why they did this technology is most of the time when you do flashbacks or anything like that, it's like gazy, distant type image. He wanted you to be able to feel the image. He wanted to make it more the material of the mind, make it more real and heavy impact. And it's something new. I mean, still, you look into the perspective of the speeds we use, like in editing and stuff like that, and then we're able to change speeds in editing to portray certain things a certain way. To have it back then to show it in a film of this nature was brilliant. But unfortunately, MGM did not want to do this on this show scan. And instead, Trumbull decided to do the sequences at 24 frames per second in Super Panavision 70 at an aspect ratio of 2.2.1. And the rest of the film was shot in a conventional 35 millimeter with a ratio of 1.7 to 1. I mean, it looks fantastic in the film, and the new remaster stuff like that. There isn't I don't think there is a 4K release on this. Just a Blu-ray, and I think it does need a 4K on there. The soundtrack score was also conducted by James Horner, which was really, and it won him a Saturn Award in '83 for this. It had mixed reviews. I mean, you had Louise Fletcher's performance was very, I mean, of all the characters on there, Louise Fletcher was fantastic. Natalie was also does a great job, as she's always done in the past on there. Christopher Walken, basically, was also done very well, and all the rest of the cast on there. There was a review in Aries magazine that said, for those looking for nothing than the same old spaceships and monsters, well, this probably one isn't for you. But then again, you got all the movies you need this year. Brainstorm is for the rest of us. To look to that perspective then on there, to say from, taking it from Star Wars and Star Trek and many other science fiction films, and then you have this. It's taking it to a different level. I mean, you had Dune at this time period as well. And when you look to the perspective of what Dune went through at this time period and look at what happened with Brainstorm, Trumbull never opted to direct a Hollywood film again. He said in an interview, I have no interest in doing another Hollywood feature film, absolutely none. The movie business is totally screwed up, that I just don't have the energy to invest 3 or 4 years in a feature film. Movie making is like waging war. It destroys your personal life. 2, the people that can survive the process of making films have largely given up their personal lives in order to do that, just because it is a battle to make a movie, and doing that, they've isolated themselves from the very audience that they were trying to reach. In 2013, he had said, uncertain circumstances of Natalie's death was the main reason for this decision, but he did return to filmmaking. But you could see from a director from the 80s, from a time period when a lot of films were being made, that there were a lot of people that weren't afraid to make films. The studios at certain points grab control. And this is what's happening today at a astronomical level as far as control. There are films out there that were made in the years prior to the 2000 era that the studios didn't bother to, stay on the backs. They kept someone around to make sure that they were not going way over the budget. But they allowed the directors and the producers to handle their jobs properly and to make a good films. That's why we had those great science fiction films in the 80s. But now you have to the perspective that the studios are interjecting their politics, their activism. They're hiring inexperienced people. You've already seen this happen on the accident recently, and it's still being investigated because we don't know all the details. The Rust movie set issue with Alec Baldwin. Did they go dirt cheap? Why were there actual live ammo on the set of a movie when you had an armorer on that set that's supposed to maintain the control of the weapons? Did the assistant director overstep his job by grabbing weapons where he shouldn't have grabbed it until it was clear that he could remove that weapon? and give it to the star. I mean, we don't know this, and an investigation will continue to be further. But this is some of the things that are happening in Hollywood. We're hearing from certain directors that basically they're not allowed to do certain things in movies, that basically they're forced to change characters to either gender swap, race swap, sexual swap. I mean, just for diversity. But the thing about it is the industry has been diverse for many decades. Someone said it on one of the other YouTube shows that, you know, if you get hired as a director in this business, you're not getting hired for your experience. You're getting hired because they want to wave the flag. Like the Eternals director. They were hired because basically they, not only that they won an award, but it was their minority that basically they were putting in there, and she got hired for that, not for her experience. And we see the issues that's going on with Marvel's Eternals right now for that reason. I've said this, and I continue to say this to those of you out there. If you're looking for a job in this industry, whether it's filmmaking or doing these YouTube shows and stuff like that, don't go to big money for it. The money is out there. You can grab it. You can grab hold of it. You just not know where it is. If you're going into filmmaking, don't, and I say don't, go to Hollywood. Do not sell your script to Hollywood. If you do, if Hollywood shows up at your door wanting your script, hire an attorney. And make sure you get everything you want, and make sure you maintain the control of your property. Because that's the one thing Hollywood does, is that they will take away and hold on to your property, and you'll never, ever do a sequel. You will never be able to touch it. You won't be able to make money off of it. They obviously will give you a check here and there, but not to where the money that is due truly to you. And you already see it from this director. Hollywood will drag you through the muck. That's why Hollywood needs to go. A new Hollywood needs to be born. And I'm telling you, it is coming. It is coming, folks. Hays Code 2.0 is going on right now. We need to get rid of that. We need to get rid of the Oscars, the Emmys, the Golden Globes. We need to get rid of all these award ceremonies, because basically, you know, they're not giving awards to people that deserve those awards. They're giving the awards to people that they deem should have these awards. Not for the quality of the content of the movie or the quality of the job that they did, but the color of their skin and their sexuality. That is totally wrong. And you may say to yourself, well, that's, you know, the industry hasn't been fair. The industry has never been really truly fair. But at least the award ceremonies carried the point where basically they used to give awards to people that deserved it because of the job that they gave. You may not agree with it, but it's merit always first. If you're going to hire somebody for a job, it is on their merits, not the color of their skin. All the stuff that they tell you on there violates certain laws, regulations, union codes, variations. But you say, well, no, things have changed. No, it violates rules and regulations, whether it's state, local, federal level. And people don't realize this. There are people out there that are writing propaganda and says this is what belongs in your movies. Again, Hays Code 2.0. So when you have a moment, grab this film. Show this film some love. Pass it on to friends. This is a beautiful movie. This is also a frightening movie from a perspective, from a technological. Like I said, Looker was ahead of its time, and it gave some frightening aspects to technology. Brainstorm is another that show where will we end up as far as the technology. We are at the VR level. Do we start putting stuff into the mind? Imagine that. And like I said, there have been other movies. In 2009, Bruce Willis had a movie out called Surrogates, where people live inside robots, which they project their mind into the robots themselves, where they live the day at home, but the robots live their lives outside. In other words, they control it by the mind. The other film, which is similar to the Brainstorm, is the 1995 Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes and Angela Bassett and Tom Sizemore and Juliette Lewis, also on Vincent D'Onofrio. This one we will be discussing on there. It was directed by Kathleen Bigelow, written by James Cameron. A fantastic movie. Take it to the perspective of recording what's in the brain, as, like a recorder. In other words, it records your elements as it's happening. So it's similar to Brainstorm, and I do recommend these two films. But you could see where the technology moves forward. When will we get there? I don't know. But let's move on and see what's on my video shelf, because we have another movie that's going to take you in the mind from a point of view of using psychic abilities. As we continue in the minds, or It's All in the Mind, feature today on Saturday Pre-Flight. Well, off my video shelf this week, we're going to continue being inside the mind's eye. The 1984 dark science fiction adventure film. Some people tout it as a sci-fi horror. It's more toward a science fiction adventure. It's the 1984 movie Dreamscape, starring Dennis Quaid, Max von Sydow, Christopher Plummer, David Patrick Kelly, Kate Catshaw, George Wendet, Eddie Albert. This is a really good film. This, not too many people talk about. The effects are average on this, and it happens to be pretty good. The main premise of this is basically people with psychic powers that can go into the minds of people during dream state, similar to the practice of the Sentinel natives of Malaysia, which was mentioned in the movie itself. And you're able to walk into in people's dreams and see what they're dreaming about. And it is a great premise, and the whole thing about it is that someone out there is trying to create assassins to kill people while they sleep, and it's really, really good. Eddie Albert plays the President of the United States, which he's having recurring nightmares, and he's trying to resolve those recurring nightmares, but he doesn't know that he's slated for assassination. Dennis Quaid plays a psychic who has been away from the funded project that he used to be on, and now that he's been captured and brought back to the project, he is beginning to help people who needs help the most on here. There's a great scene in this where a young boy who has nightmares. This is where the horror part of it comes in, where he has a nightmare of a creature that's chasing him around in his nightmares, and Dennis Quaid goes in to help him. It's really, the creature effects on this is really good. The thoughts of this that being a nightmare, and then of course the nightmares of nuclear holocaust as well. Since Eddie Albert, playing the president, is negotiating for nuclear disarmament, and he has all this in his mind at the same time. The original author to this was Roger Zenlin, and it was his development. The outline he wrote was based upon a novella of He Who Shapes, and the 1981 He Who Shapes, and the 1966 novel The Dream Master. But he had sold his outline to 20th Century Fox at the time, but from one technical aspect, he is not in the credits or been credited. I mean, a lot of people saying that he had his name removed from the credits due to the way the movie was thought of by the critics on there. Now, even though it did make money in the bank, it made $12.1 million from a $6 million budget. It's not a long film. It's about 99 minutes long on there. It still holds a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. One thing to note on this particular film is that this was the second movie to be released under the new MPAA guidelines. The other movie at the time period, which was Red Dawn, really good movie as well, was rated as a PG-13. This is when they added PG-13, which still to this day, I don't agree with having a PG-13. It's either G, PG, R, and R. No rating. It should be, the no rating. Now they have like the NC-17. NC-17, people under 17 can't go see. No rating would have helped as well. That's the thing I consider, the stupidity in the MPAA on there. I mean, we're at the point today, we're Hays, and we keep saying this, Hays Code 2.0. Remember, the MPAA grew out of the Hays Code from the 30s, 40s on there. It took until after the 60s into the 70s for the MPAA just to reorganize the entire rating system of the Motion Picture Association. And the things that just, what the Hays Code was doing is similar to some of the stuff that's going on today. I mean, when you hear at the Oscars that says, well, you have to have X amount of people on this as far as staff of minorities and this and that, and that's not making a movie. Making a movie is taking someone artwork, putting it on screen, no matter who is in it. If they do a great job of it, yes, they should be praised for the great job they do. If it's awful, then they get a Razzie. Shouldn't matter the color of their skin. We're all Americans here. We're all Americans, and we should be treated as Americans and not anything else other than that, other than the names that we were given at birth. It's very important on that. It's very important. We haven't, movies like this, like Dreamscape, is a very, and the previous movie, Brainstorm, these are great science fiction movies. Robert Meyer Burnett the other day was on Midnight's Edge, and he's talking about the problems with, we don't have good science fiction movies again like we used to. We've gotten a couple of good TV series like The Expanse that's been out there, and a couple other things. But as far as movies, we haven't gotten a really, really good science fiction movie. I mean, some people might say, well, what about Dune? I said, Dune is a blockbuster. That's what it is. And that's what happens with the film industry. They were making blockbusters. But you have a movie like this, Dreamscape, which only cost $6 million and still made money. And, it still made money. And look how, a very good cast that you had on this movie. It was a very good cast. This is an 80s film. We need to go back to look at the parameters of 80s and 90s films again. We weren't afraid to make movies in this time period. We were pumping out films like crazy. I mean, I was at the point, 84, just coming out of high school, and going to trade school and college for film and broadcast television, and then taking my first job in the industry, working in the VHS industry at the time. DVDs were just a new technology that was still being developed at the time in the late 80s. That technology was still not fully utilized yet. At the point we were at, as far as the technology of making VHS copies, was two ways. We had the old-fashioned way by recording them on VHS recorders, and the other half was something called mirror mothers. Mirror mothers were basically, we made a copy of the movie on a special machine, and this was built by Sony, and it made a mirror image of the movie. And basically we took that and we took it to another machine, and that machine translated that movie onto large rolls of VHS tape. And we're talking tape that was not yet put into video cassettes yet. And it would make multiple copies at rapid rates. There would be a signal at the beginning and at the end that will tell the machine this is where once we load these into cassettes, where it needs to be cut. And once the full roll was done, you take it to the other machine, and the other machine, you pop it in, you thread it up, and it would just loop the tape into the cassette, and basically it would pop out tons at a time. And the best part about it is, from a quality control, all we had to do was take one tape and look at that tape from beginning, middle, and end. If that tape was good, the lot was good. Versus we would have to check practically every tape that came out of a VCR to make sure that the quality was good. And that's why, the costs were very high at the time. That's why it was like $90 for a VHS tape at the time. The stuff that they had to do to put this out was very expensive. Now these days, they could pop them out very quickly now. The machines that we use now these days, the Blu-rays and stuff like that, it's nothing. It's nothing these days. So, Dreamscape, fantastic film. I highly recommend for you to get it. In fact, I just watched it again recently. Such a good film. So that's my what's on my video shelf for this week. Well, we reached the most important part of the show. What's on your mind? What thoughts are you thinking of on our videos here on CutieCast TV? How are you feeling? Do you have anything to add to the conversation? So let's kick it in with over on YouTube. And let's talk with, Poogie Molto Beanie. This is concerning the CW reboot of the Waltons. The Black Waltons, you mean. Honestly, if CW goes in that direction like they did with 4400, that will piss off literally a Waltons base you don't want to mess with. The narrator is going to be the actor who played John Boy on the TV series, so I don't really think it's going to go that far. But see, the problem is they're going to try to rewrite history, and that's the big issue. They're going to make it sound like probably the Waltons are bad or to the situation on that because of the color of their skin, and that's wrong. The Waltons was in a time period that it was pretty rough for Americans at that point. We're between wars and, out of one into another. You had the Depression era. You had all these situations that were going on. You have to remember, this is through 1933 to the 46. So you're dealing with most of the Depression. Also, this is dealing in Virginia, if I remember to what the place it took. Of course, on the mountains on there, where basically everyone if you watch METV in the early part of the day, right before the afternoon, they're playing episodes of the Waltons, and you see people are walking to school, walking to the store. They were long distance. This was a time period where people didn't really have money, and you could see it according to the clothes and what they did, and they sewed their own clothing. They did what they could to survive the period. And it was a rough period, And the thing about it is, like I said, you're going to have a situation where the CW is probably going to interject their activist politics into the show. And that's the wrong thing to do. And like I said again, they're going to piss off the fan base. And there is a fan base still alive to this day. Thank you again. Oh, Michael Kelly, you got the show title wrong. Which show title are you talking? That 90s show? That's unless they're changing that name of that show, that's what it's supposed to be. Unless I said something wrong on the video, I have to go back and look on it. But thank you again. Thank you, oh, Michael Kelly, for pointing something out like that. The Kentuckian, the Waltons, are they going to make them black? Back again. If they do, if CW goes in this direction. And before you say it, yes, there were characters black in the series itself. In fact, I watched one the other day about a mechanic and his son and the issues that he was going through with his son, that his son wanted a stable home life, and the father was trying to point out to the situation, and it's like, because of the color of their skin and what they were going through. I mean, these are the issues that was happening in that time period as well. Yeah, it's the 1930s to the mid 40s. You know, this is why this was one of the best TV shows, hands down, on broadcast television. You know, you had the Waltons, you had MASH, you had Policewoman, All in the Family, the Jeffersons. You had a lot of these TV series that were out there that showed life, whether it was good or bad. It showed what was going on. You know, people talk back, you know, oh, how racist Archie Bunker was in All in the Family. But it was not that he was racist. He just had a confusion of the way life was. Some of it was something you can agree with, and other things you could disagree with him. And the thing about it is, it brought in the levity of the situation, you know, especially when they brought in the Jeffersons, you know, on there. And what happened? They made a Jeffersons TV series spin-off from that. Thank you again to Kentuckian. Sister Apollyanna. I love it. That's the High Guardian Spice. Sister, you can love the series. We're not telling you not to love it or to hate it. We're just saying, we're just pointing out the problems. When you have a company that says, hey, the money that you're paying us for the service, we're going to put it into Japanese anime. This is not Japanese anime. This is what you put together with activists, people who are not well experienced, and you put in one or two who are experienced, but they still have an agenda they want to pull, and they do this and call it diverse. And it's not. It's not. When you look at the perspective of the people who are on this staff and look at the comments they've made on Twitter, where they chastised men and insulted, and, you know, like they say, man haters. And you look into the perspective that they go trans magic and stuff, and they're pushing that, you know, there's a transgender. You could have a trans character. You can have a trans character and do it right. Japan has been doing it for years. Should we point to the perspective of the anime series Vandred? Really good trans character in there. Really, really good. And there are many others in many different animes throughout the years. Japan has been doing it long before us. It's just that basically nobody paid attention to it. The people that think that, you know, they're breaking the glass ceiling, and they're saying it's been broken for a long time. Deal with it. You're not making anything new. All you're doing is interjecting politics. But like I said, if you like the series, go right ahead. You know, God bless you. You know, go right ahead and watch the series. Enjoy it. You know, but for me, this is a series that is just, you know, this is something that belongs on Cartoon Network. It would have to be edited down because some of the content would not fit on Cartoon Network, obviously. Maybe Adult Swim. And maybe it'll fit in Adult Swim. But this is, you know, and the thing is, the messed up thing about it is, when you go to the Crunchyroll site and you look down and it says dubbed, how can it be dubbed if it's already been shot in English? If we were in Japan and it said dub, I would understand being dubbed into Japanese, but it's not. In fact, it's not in Japanese. Goes to show you on there that Japan doesn't even want it, you know. But thank you again, sister. Mark Felix Abdul, true. To think that they're calling it an anime is preposterous. Total in agreement. See, there's another person that agrees with it. It, you know, the overall look for it is okay. But if you look deep into the backgrounds and everything like that, I mean, food is the food that's on the table is cut and paste. You can tell the difference. You want to make a difference on an anime, a really good anime versus this, Mushoku Tensei. Go look at Mushoku Tensei. Look at the background. In the opening alone, look at the background. Look at the movement. Look at the water. Look at the trees. And everything moves so detailed. Same thing with ReZero. It's the same thing with ReZero. And then there's another anime out there. It's an artist, and I totally forget the name of the series. It's on Netflix. It's Blue Period, about someone who engages to become an artist, and it looks very, very nicely done as well. Take a look at those and compare it to this, and you'll see the major differences between both of all these animes and this, what they're trying to push off as anime. You know, hey, listen, even though this was done before the Sony takeover, I just still can't believe Sony allowed this to be put out. I mean, but then again, they're the ones on their video game end censoring a lot of crap out there from Japan. You know, they turned against their own country where they came from originally, where they were built upon. You have to remember, Sony was Japanese. And when it came to Sony, it was a respectable label, a very respectable label. Not respectable as much as it used to be. Thanks again, Mark Felix. And thanks to all of you who have commented on this edition of Saturday Pre-Flight. We thank you very much. You may ask yourself at this point, how can I join in on the conversation? Well, you go below the video there in the comments line and start typing away. Be sure, be civil. Keep the language to the medium, because especially on YouTube, because the algorithm gods are out there and they are really watching. And I've seen some stuff get pulled very quickly. And while you're commenting, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and hit that notification bell. And switch it to all, and you'll get all of our notifications on Saturday Pre-Flight, at Cuticast TV, and also Madman with the Show as well. Well, we're coming to the end. Now, normally, there are two things we do here at the end. We preview SVENGOOLIE, and we also preview the next edition of Saturday Pre-Flight. Tonight, we will not be showing our next edition, as we are taking a couple weeks off because we are close to the holidays. Just as a programming note, Man with the Show will still be, new episodes will still be airing straight through the Thanksgiving holiday. But Saturday Pre-Flight will be taking a couple weeks off, and will return back on December 3rd, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific, on your local social media platforms, YouTube, BitChute, and later on Odyssey. But before we really go, and you'll ask yourself, well, what about SVENGOOLIE? Well, we're going to do you one better this week. We are going to give a quick look at the next couple of weeks of SVENGOOLIE. And one of them, I'm glad they're throwing into this pile.
You hired us. When you found out I'd staked the money, you decided it was time for me to die.
Godzilla has a brain about this size. He is sheer.
Kong, hold his tail!
While Kong is a thinking animal.
Saturday night on METV.
Yes, that's right, folks. November 13th, you got The Indestructible Man. November 20th, King Kong versus Godzilla, the original one. Obviously, it's probably going to be the American version of there. I don't think they would play the Japanese version, but I would suggest go out, get yourself the box set from Criterion. It has both versions on there. And finally, on the 27th of November, a great film with a great cast. Ernest Borgnine, William Shatner, The Devil's Reign, a really, really good horror film with good special effects. Some really good special, especially the melting kind on there, and not to give too much away. So that's November 13th, The Indestructible Man. November 20th, King Kong versus Godzilla. And November 27th, The Devil's Reign. So, folks, before we go here on Saturday Pre-Flight, for those of you who watch Saturday Pre-Flight every Friday, I just want to wish you guys a happy, healthy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much. Or if you do eat too much, take it easy, get a little exercise in. Save me some pumpkin pie and a glass of wine. Please, toast me a glass of wine out there. And stay safe. If you're planning to travel, have a safe travel wherever you're going to go. If you're going to be with family, la familia, very important. Very important. I'm Spanish myself, and family is always been very important to me, especially around the holidays. Especially, I have a large family now myself on both ends, on my end of the spectrum and on my wife's end of the spectrum as well. So enjoy it. We'll return back once again December 3rd, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific here on YouTube, BitChute, and later on Odyssey. So enjoy yourself. Stay tuned during the week, Tuesday through Thursday, for new editions of Man with the Show. And we'll see you on the next Saturday Pre-Flight. We'll have a preview of it in about 2 weeks. So keep an eye out for that. And that's why especially hit that notification bell for that. And we'll see you. Stay tuned for where you can get these great 2 movies we just shown on tonight's episode. And bye-bye now.